Hi, I'm Christine Daigle.
I'm Jenna Brown.
I'm Kevin Tumlinson.
And I'm JD Barker. Welcome to Writers Inc. So I thought I stumbled into a perfect use case for AI. I don't know if I told you guys this, but I'm building an indoor pool.
Yeah.
So I hired a designer and he came out and he kind of started sketching out, where the pool can go, and like we've got, easements, property lines, all this stuff we've got to, kind of factor into it. But he kind of put together a footprint, and he's an older guy who's really good, but he does everything on paper. So like he doesn't use CAD. He likes to actually draw it all out. So I took a picture of what he had, and just to see what would happen, I fed it into ChatGPT and said, "Can you turn this into a full-on design and provide blueprints?" And it's like, oh, absolutely, I could do that. It started asking me all these questions. They came up with, like, we're going to put a waterfall over here. This is the type of pump system you need. This is what you're going to need to heat and cool the room. I spent about an hour just answering questions and just going back and forth with it, just filling in blanks. And it said, okay, I'm finally ready to generate the blueprints. So it like goes off and does, where whatever it does. Like the little thing was just spinning for like 5 minutes, and then I got a notice back saying my blueprints are ready. And I open them up and like I look at them, and they look fantastic. But then I look closer and I realized that none of the measurements actually add up. Like there was one wall that was 26 feet long and the other wall was 46 feet long, but in the picture, the 26-foot wall looked bigger than the 46-foot wall.
Right.
And like those kind of mistakes carry through the entire thing.
Can I
Which is
say how
hilarious because math,
unshocked I am by this? I'm
yeah,
just not
math is
shocked at
supposed to
all.
be the one thing that AI can do, like really well.
Yeah, you would think. And like the other thing that I kept screwing up is like the room. It's kind of a long space. It's 26 feet wide and 26 feet wide, 48 feet long. And it has to attach to a sunroom that's on my house to an existing wall. So that's kind of how we're going to get through the house. It kept flipping the entire pool like horizontal instead of vertical, and like attaching it to the house in the wrong way. So I eventually gave up. I mean, what it
AI.
was good at doing though is it created like actual pictures of what the room could look like,
Yeah.
which is a good jumping off point. Because like
Maybe not
ideas
for
I thought I had,
measuring.
like, yeah, not so much for measuring, but you're right. Like the math, like that should be the first thing it's able to do.
There's a
Yeah.
guy on Instagram, like social media, who like just makes fun of AI, um, and was just trying to get it to count to 100, like, and it just wouldn't do it. And it was just like, you count one, two, three, like that, all the way to 100. And he's like, no, but actually count. And like, it was just so,
Well,
he
isn't that like
could not
there's
get it
like
to count.
the trick of like if you ask AI how many R's are in strawberry, it'll tell you two.
Yeah, two.
Like,
Yeah,
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 it just like
two.
and you'll break it
Yeah.
down. It'll be like, how many R's in the word straw? How many R's in the word berry? And it'll be like, one, two. How many in the word strawberry?
Strawberry,
Two.
two.
Like it just,
Yeah. And then when you call it out, it's like, oh, I see what's happening. You're accidentally spelling the word wrong.
Yeah,
So, yeah, it's actually 55 R's
yes, yeah,
or some.
exactly.
The one I like is when the guy says, so I live 150 feet away from the car wash. Should I drive my car to the car wash or should I walk to the car wash? And
yeah.
the AI says, you should definitely walk to the car wash. It's only 150 feet. You can do that. And he says, but I need my car there to wash it. Oh, I see what's happening. Yeah, you should carry your car with you when you walk to the car wash.
Oh,
Oh
Oh,
AI.
AI.
All
this is
right.
why I'm not worried about AI taking my job, by the way. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
for those of you worried,
Gonna Jedi mind trick this thing. All
yeah.
right, what is in the news?
Well, in the news, Amazon to bring the UK's first open air library dedicated exclusively to self published authors to Victoria Park. Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing is opening the UK's first open air library dedicated entirely to self published books, giving visitors a chance to browse and borrow indie titles for free in London's Victoria Park. The pop-up celebrates the 10th anniversary of the Kindle Storyteller Award and will feature books from past winners as well as successful indie authors like Colleen Hoover and Frida McFadden, who both began their careers through self-publishing. The Kindle Storyteller Award is currently open for entries, offering £20,000 prize, a hometown marketing campaign for the winner, and a special print edition for all shortlisted authors.
Well,
Well,
that's cool.
this is
It's
awesome.
really cool.
Yeah.
Is this award's only available in the UK though, right? I think
I
I
believe
looked at this a long
so.
time ago.
Yeah. I believe it's a UK prize. But
But I think that
still
U.S.
cool.
authors can actually enter to win, though. I
Can you? I
think.
don't know. I will have to look it
Because
up.
I get little notices for things like this all the time from them, and it's like, hey, change one of your keywords to Kindle Storyteller Award, and you'll be entered in the UK store to possibly win this award. I've done it a few times, so I think it is open to everyone, but it's only for the UK store.
Yeah,
Oh,
that might
Someone
be
will
true.
probably correct me on that.
But I just think it's
I don't
cool.
know.
And it's just again like you know, putting indie authors out there. I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it is like, I mean, it's hard to become a Colleen Hoover, obviously, but like more and more we are starting to see that there are really successful indie authors who are now like, getting more of that mainstream recognition and moving into the traditional space, which, I think is good. I think it means publishers are realizing that like their formulas for what they're looking for aren't working. And so,
yeah.
Yeah, you're right, Kevin. You do not have to be in the UK to apply. I just looked it up.
I've
But
always I,
cool.
I always need to look at that to try to figure out why it's a UK prize because like Amazon is a US based company, so like there must be a reason why it's a UK thing. Like it
Uh,
originated over there, or the idea came from
Something
there,
like
or
that.
something. But yeah, just always seemed to
Maybe
wonder
they're
why.
just trying to encourage more indie authors to publish over
Yeah.
there. I mean, because I don't
Maybe
know.
that's
I don't
it.
know.
Maybe
Yeah,
there's a lot more in the US than there is there.
yeah. So, well, I don't know. Speaking of Amazon and KDP, though, KDP raises price ceiling for a 70% royalty rate for the first time. Amazon announced that for those using Kindle Direct Publishing, the 70% royalty has expanded from a top price of $9.99 to $12.99 effective July 7th. That is the first increase in the price band since 2007. As the Authors Guild notes, this move also brings Amazon closer in line with its competitors. Apple Books and Barnes and Noble Press pay a flat 70% at every price point, and Kobo pays 70% on any ebook priced at $2.99 or above.
So are you going to
interesting.
go in and change your pricing?
No, because I always price my books at reasonable prices according to the market. So I don't have any paperbacks that should be 9.99 or above, in my opinion, unless I price like I have an omnibus collection that was limited to 9.99. So I may move that one up. 12.99 for that would be much more reasonable. So yes, that was a
I
long way
kind of
around, but yes.
I kind of use the pricing to because I think it's different markets, it's different groups, right? So like I've got traditionally
Hmm.
published books, and those are selling at 12.99, 14.99, somewhere in that range. I publish my personal stuff at 9.97, but I've also been putting a lot of my co-author titles at lower amounts, like around $5. And I'm grabbing different readers from different groups, because some of these
Yeah.
people will pay $5, they won't pay $9. Other ones, so it's all across the board. So I try to use the pricing to just, go out there and grab new readers from segments that may not have been buying under the other pricing models.
Yeah. It's tempting to price up. I already kind of price higher than when I first started. Uh, because I used to try to lowball it and get people to buy me because I was cheaper, which I think is a bad strategy for writers. I price at about the same level as most of the traditional publishers put a book out these days. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it goes because when something like this happens, what will happen is a lot of authors will push their prices up, and that may actually encourage that market. Like if
Mm.
readers become accustomed to paying $10, $12 for a book, then why not? I mean, I can use more money. 70% of $13 is way better than 70% of seven.
It's
So,
so interesting because I do think as a reader, um, I am reluctant to pay $10 for an ebook.
mm,
Like,
yeah,
it's just,
that's my experience too.
yeah. So, like, for a paperback, that's fine, but like for an ebook, like it definitely, I will wait, particularly for like traditional published books to go on sale because I'll always have a sale and grab them then.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. But there's like, I don't know, some like mental resistance of like,
What's
that's
your
too
price point?
much.
What's your top price point?
Um, so 5.99 feels reasonable to me. I won't really flinch at that price point.
Hmm.
Um, but I used to shop like the $1.99, $99, $2.99 sales, and that's how I found a lot of some of my favorite books because they would go on sale like first in a trilogy.
Yeah.
Um, because it's like at that point, it's almost just like, sure, I'll buy it. Why not? Like there's no risk to me at that. I mean, I know it's like a dollar or $2, but it feels so low
Yeah. When they get
that
those sales that are $1.99, and if I'm like, I was on the fence with that book, then I'm like, sure, I'll buy it.
right.
I'll
Yeah,
get
I'll
to it at
buy
some
Hmm.
it
point.
and I'll likely read them because
Yeah.
then they're like, oh, that sounded interesting and I'll buy it. And um, but like 5.99 feels pretty good for me for an
Yeah.
ebook.
You
I don't
guys are
even
making me
flinch at like
rethink my pricing
9.99.
strategy.
Yeah, I don't even flinch at 9.99, but like after I do, it feels a little bit weird for an earbook because I'm like, there's not even any paper. Like you're just
I know. I
I'm
know.
Yeah,
getting an
I guess that's
electronic license. I don't know. It's not, I don't even own it. It's weird.
I know. I guess that's why it's weird. It just like 5.99 is like okay, like that's fine, but like you start getting up to like 8.99, 9.99. Some are like 12.99, 14.99. And it's
Yeah.
like and then you look on Amazon and sometimes like a physical copy is cheaper than the ebook and that is
Yeah,
insane to
Yeah.
that
me.
irks me
Yeah.
because that
Like
just feels like you're giving me the middle finger. That's what that
yeah,
feels like.
yeah.
Well,
So
So
I
when you
guess
see that,
like
is it? Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but when you see that, is that typically a traditional title or a traditionally published
yeah,
title? That's
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah.
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 yeah, because
Eh,
I do know that they tend to price when they come out of the gate, the paperback and the ebook around the same price because in their mind they see them both as interchangeable.
Hmm.
Um, so
Yeah, I guess as a
yeah.
reader I
But I
don't.
do get suckered. Like lots of times I'll be like, oh, I'm interested in that book, and I'll like try a sample, and then I get hooked, and then I buy it at the 14.99. I'm mad about it, but I do it anyway.
Yeah.
I will only do that. I will do that for the authors that I actually genuinely love their work, like
Yeah.
if
Hmm.
Orson Scott Card or John Grisham or somebody like that comes out with something, I'm okay with that. But often if I'm sampling new books, I'm looking for something well under the $10 range.
Yeah.
If I haven't read the author before and don't know anything about them, unless they've just gotten like stellar press from somebody I really trust, like Jenna said to go read that book, I'm
Mhm.
typically not going to pay more than $10.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
So
lower the price, I feel like the easier it is to convince someone to just hit the buy button. Like it's just like $3. I mean, sure, why not? Like there, it just feels like so
yeah.
easy. But the more those dollars start creeping up there, the more you start thinking about it. Like, well, what do I really know about this? And is it worth it? And do I really want it? And
Honestly, the reason I don't change my price that often is because Amazon doesn't make it very easy, first of all.
mm,
But the other reason is I literally have so many books that it would take me 2 days to do it all
Yeah.
on all the
Right.
different platforms.
mhm.
So it's better for me to just decide on a price and stick with it and occasionally put one on sale or whatever. But going through and lowering prices or raising prices, I'm a lot less likely to do that
Yeah.
because it would take too much time.
JD, didn't you
So
say that I don't remember the publisher, but didn't you say that with your 4MK they did a sale for it and it like spiked your sales on the ebook that they like did
yeah, no, that's happened a lot of times. Sometimes they've put it in Prime Reading before. They've done it as a
yeah,
Kindle sale thing. And yeah, it lights up the rest of the series. But like, I think I'm just in a weird place because like I've got a new book coming out with Patterson. I meant to look at it, but I'm guessing the ebook is probably 14.99 or 16.99.
yeah,
So like that's kind of the norm for the people that read me. They see a lot of those. I put my own ones at 9.97, which is low compared to the traditional ones. So but they're conditioned, I think, for that particular price point. A
yeah,
lot of
yeah,
this comes down to conditioning the readers. Like if all
Mhm.
of your books are $5 or less, then you're never going to be able to get
yeah.
away with something higher priced.
Right, right.
that is
That's
true.
exactly my conundrum.
I like Christine said, if I know and follow the author,
It's
like
JD's book.
I
I'll pay 14.99 for it.
yeah, then you're
As
like,
well
okay,
you
that's
should.
fine. Like, because you know it's going to be good, like, or at least the odds of it being good and worth it
Yeah,
are there. But for
that's
like
right.
a, if you're brand new to the author, so I guess maybe the key is price it the way you want to keep it forever, and then do sales. Maybe I don't
Yeah.
know.
How about this, JD? I'll just give you $7 directly, and you can send me like a PDF of it. How's that?
Not a chance.
All right. Speaking of nothing having a chance, publishing is a hologram problem and it's growing. Author Robert Moore argues that readers are increasingly buying the idea of a book, its cover, pitch, podcast interviews, and online buzz rather than the book itself. He calls this public facing version the book's quote hologram. He warns that AI is making the problem worse by offering book summaries, chatbots that answer questions about books, and AI generated discussions that let people consume the main ideas without ever reading the actual text. Moore says the publishing industry may be training people to skip reading altogether, blurring the line between experiencing a book and simply consuming content about it. I'm going to say I think this is maybe more of a nonfiction problem than a fiction problem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree. Tim Ferriss just put out a really good essay on this exact thing about how his book sales have steadily declined since ChatGPT came out and
Yeah,
why he thinks that happens. Interestingly, he said he wasn't that worried about it though, because people who want shortcuts typically they might buy your books, but they're not the ones that like consistently read them and then like follow through on it and like kind of become like a follower for the nonfiction
yeah,
personality.
right.
Um, so that was an interesting read for anyone interested in his take.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, I think you talked to our upcoming guest about it, but I don't want to spoil that. But yeah, I mean
Oh,
it's
yeah.
it's a weird idea, just like that people are consuming what the book is about instead of the book.
Well, I'll
So
give you an example of this. I was listening to a podcast called I think it's called My First Million. It's all entrepreneurs, and they just talk about how they
Yeah,
got their first company off the ground.
Mhm.
yeah.
But they had somebody on there who was talking about this exact same thing, and he was researching who was the guy who created CNN.
Oh,
Rupert Murdoch?
Ted,
No.
It
no,
What's
might
that?
Ted,
no
Ted?
Ted Turner?
Ted
Oh,
Turner.
Ted Turner?
Yeah, so
Okay, yeah.
so this guy wanted to read about Ted Turner, so he created a list of books about Ted Turner, which he did with ChatGPT. He said, "Give me a list of books about Ted Turner," and then he had ChatGPT create a summary book of those other books. So it gave him like 5 different books. It created a new book that was based on those 5 books, basically pulling facts from all 5, so that he didn't have to read 5 books anymore because there would obviously be a lot of overlapping facts. But
Yeah.
he wanted to make sure he got all the data. So it created a new book for him, based on the 5 books that basically ChatGPT somehow read. And then he, listened to that, I guess some kind of audiobook version of that. Like he had something read it to him. So
Yeah.
he didn't read, so those 5 books never sold. He didn't read the 5 books. He still got the data out of it. And he did it in far
Mm,
less time than it would have taken to actually go through and read the books with the highlighter the way we would have traditionally. We would have gone through, we would have folded corners, we
right.
would have made notes. He didn't have to do any of that. That seems to be a growing trend.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what this does? It's interesting. I only just thought of this, but nonfiction has had a certain advantage over fiction when it comes to searchability on Amazon. If you go to Amazon, Amazon is really a search engine. If you want to know how to, I don't know, learn to code or whatever, you type that in and it will deliver you those results. But no one can do that when it comes to fiction. Like I
Mhm.
can't just go on to Amazon and say, I wouldn't even know what to ask for. I want a book about, I don't know, Elon Musk becoming a cyborg. And maybe I'd get a hit, but probably not. But nonfiction has always had that advantage. But
Yeah.
what this does, unfortunately, is it tamps down that advantage because people aren't going to search for those books anymore. They're just asking for summaries.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've kind of get some of this. I'm thinking back about when I was consuming books about storycraft, and I got Story Grid, which I was like, I don't even know what this is about. And then the
Yeah,
podcast was so much more helpful,
Mm.
because it expanded on it and went through those ideas, and it took longer, but it was easier to consume. And I could see like doing
yeah,
summaries for that kind of thing, but I think for fiction it would be really weird. But I could also see it happening. Like people just buying a pretty cover and talking maybe to a chatbot about what it's about. And, people do this. I've done this with literary books for years, pretend that they've read them so they can talk to their friends
That's a
Yeah.
about
good
it.
point.
Um,
Yeah.
but I
The
mean, I would find that
poseur.
really weird because I want to experience the fiction book, like have the experience of reading it. But I can see an audience that might just want to be social about it or chat about
Yeah.
it without actually experiencing the book. It's a weird
Look,
thing.
I feel like that would
this
be
this
really,
gives me an idea for a great product. Poser.ai.
oh my God.
You can
I feel like it
fake
would
your way
definitely,
through every conversation.
it would be really easy to figure out who was doing that though, because like when someone's read a book because it's like they'll talk about like some like random quote, right? Or like some obscure side character or like, it's not usually like unless it's like a giant plot twist where you're like, "Oh my God, that blew my mind." Like
Yeah.
usually it's like those smaller, quieter details that like people really like fall in love with a book, and I just feel like that would be really hard to get an AI to like pick up on that nuance.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You know there is a kid somewhere right now, asking his AI, give me 3 really cool quotes about the Count of Monte Cristo that make it sound like I read it, and will
Yeah.
impress other people.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess
Oh
if
man.
you're familiar with it, it would work. Like if you're talking to other people who are also like not really, like it would work, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
You just made me realize an industry that's got to be taking a huge hit right now, and that's the Cliff Notes guys. They got
Yeah.
to be taking a
Mm.
gut punch.
Well, this is in a roundabout way. This is actually working its way through the court system because Google created these AI summaries now that show up at the top of every search result. They're getting
Yeah.
sued by all the underlying companies because
Mm,
now people aren't clicking through anymore and they're not generating that ad revenue that they were getting before.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's going to work its way through the courts, and it's very possible that the practice may be, it might be outlawed, and they might not be able to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I just got thinking, does anyone here ever watch IT Crowd? This was a while ago. It was a British
I, I
show.
What
I
I'm
used to watch
curious
it. Yeah.
about
Yeah, and do
is
you remember there was that sports site for like lying about watching sports to your friend? It was like Blackball. Like, did
Oh,
you
that's
see
right.
that ludicrous display? And you'd have like 3 quotes about sports you could say you're gonna turn into this.
That's
so
funny.
the only thing I don't understand is they initially got all this stuff by stealing the books,
Yeah.
which all these court cases have now said like you can't do that anymore. So
Hmm.
how can an AI company keep up on new releases if you're not allowed to steal the books anymore? Like because right, like if you upload a book into your chat history, isn't it supposed to be closed now? Like it's not supposed to
Yeah.
be used to train the model. So like how could I don't
You
understand
have to
how,
turn that off
Illegal.
manually, by
but
the way.
yeah, but legally, I mean, I know like they don't really pay attention to the law, but if the lawsuits came back and said you weren't allowed to steal it just because someone illegally uploads it into their own chat and they leave that turned on, isn't that still illegal for them to train the model on it?
Questions for a different age, Jenna.
Questions for an attorney.
Yeah.
I mean, okay. I guess like that's why I'm just like I don't really understand how this is going to be like a long-term future thing because like technically it should be illegal.
Yeah.
I'm
We'll see.
pretty sure that in the terms of service we're agreeing we're allowing them to use anything that we key in there unless we do what Kevin said, which is drill through all the settings and find that one toggle that they don't
Yeah.
want you to find and turn it off.
It's
But if
deeply
it's illegal
buried
for
too, by
you
the
to
way.
do
I'm sure it
something,
is.
it can't just make it like default legal for them, right? I mean, I guess that, like you said, a question for an attorney, but like if I illegally do something, like other people can't legally now benefit from that illegal act.
You would hope not.
Okay.
But you're giving them permission to utilize the content. It's no different than Google. Like every Google search, every Gmail that you send, every Google Doc you create, all of that stuff is usable by Google, unless you opt out. And I don't know that they even give you a way to opt out because they're letting you use their product for free in order to gain that.
But I guess I'm asking if the book was stolen, like if you download an illegal PDF and upload it into ChatGPT,
Yeah.
I
like
don't know.
do
Yeah,
two
I don't
wrongs
know.
make
I
it
don't know.
right?
I think you're gonna have to try it and then let us know what happens.
Yeah.
Yep.
No way.
Send us. They have prison pen pal programs that you can use to let us know what happened. All right, that's it
All
for the
right.
news.
JD, who's up this week?
This week we've got Stig Abell coming on. Stig's a British journalist, broadcaster, and author. He's currently co-hosting the Times Radio Breakfast Show and previously worked for BBC Radio. His latest novel is called A Twist in the River, book 4 of his Jake Jackson series, and it released earlier this year. Here he is, Stig Abell.
Well, I am happy to chat with well, we didn't really get a chance to chat beforehand, but I'm sure we're going to be fast friends, Stig. So
I feel that
Stig
already.
Abell.
I feel very strong vibes about that.
So we're going to be talking today about your new book, A Twist in the River. When does that book release?
It's out where I am in London at the minute and in Canada and Australia, but in the US it comes out on the 23rd of June.
Well, US has to get it last. What are we?
I don't know. I don't understand publishing even. I've been doing it. Why does publishing take so long? I
don't
write
know.
these things and then they disappear for sort of 12, 14, 15 months and then they reappear again. I've got no concept of why it takes so long
Don't
to
even
get
remember
from...
what the book's about by the time it comes back.
Yeah, I have to read it again.
So how long did it take to write the book?
And I think I don't say this with any great sense of pride. I'm a very fast writer because I love doing it so much. And once I get going, I'm a real momentum writer. So I probably write 1,500 words a day and I write every day. And so it's probably 12 weeks is about to take 3 months, I think. And I realize that, you should, as an artist, be sitting in a garret somewhere and have only single words bleeding out of you that you scratch on a piece of paper. But I'm not that person.
Surviving on nothing but scotch and stale bread.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not that guy.
What is your writing process? 1,500 words a day? Is that your daily target?
I try to. I mean, I have this strange life because my day job, I present a breakfast radio show. So I get up at 2:30 in the morning and I get driven to a studio and then I work till about 11 in the morning. And then I start writing on the train home. And then my kids come back from school about 4. And so between sort of the journey home and 4, that's the only time I have to write. And so I don't have a desk. I just have a computer, and then wherever I can go where it's quiet, I go and write. And again, I'm sure there's people who only write, it's their only job, and their biggest complaint is they have too much time and it's hard to focus. I try and make a virtue of the necessity here. I have a very finite amount of time each day to do it, and so I've got to be really on it and motivated and get going. And I feel that the joy I have for it sort of helps me get going, and then once I'm going, I'm happy to be doing it.
Yeah. Does it? Do you feel like you? I mean, is it a struggle? Is it an actual struggle to get moving?
I think if I've prepared it properly, not so much. I don't think I'm the best in the world at plotting. I think plotting comes hard to me a bit, and so also the other thing, if at 2:30 in the morning I get driven to work and I'm in the back of a car for 40 minutes in the pitch black, feeling wretched, that's quite a good time to do plotting. So I sometimes arrive at work and scrawl a note to myself where I've suddenly worked something out. So if I've done my thinking properly, I put some music on. I always listen to music as I'm writing, and I actually put a playlist at the back of the book. So if you see the book, there's the playlist that I'm listening to as I'm writing, which I also sort of secrete into the book as well. So my characters are listening to the music I'm listening to, and then the readers can listen to the same music as well. There's a playlist in the back of the book.
My friend, that is an idea I'm definitely stealing.
No, go for it. No, I love it. Also, one of my favorite things about reading is the fact that two people are kind of fused when they're not geographically or chronologically linked. And actually, when you put a piece of music on, both listen to the same piece of music or read the same text, it's this sort of fusing. So take it. I love the idea of contextual reading when you're reading and people are kind of knowing what else is going on around you.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's like a bridge across space and time. You're actually
exactly.
You're able to get into the same rhythm, the same headspace.
Yeah.
Have you done that with all your books?
Yeah, I did it. I'm not sure I had the confidence to put it in the first one. This is the 4th one of the series, but it's definitely in the preceding 2. Because I like I said, I don't have a desk, and because I'm writing on the move a lot.
Yeah.
I actually think listening to music is a way of me, in a sort of Pavlovian fashion, indicating to my brain, oh, you're writing now. And I think that helps me sort of get focused a little bit. So I listen to often classical music. I make a joke in the book because my guy, who's the detective in the book, he reads a lot of detective books, and so he knows he should be listening to jazz.
Yeah.
Jazz is what all good hard-boiled
That's
detectives
right.
should be listening to, and he doesn't really like jazz. So in this book, he meets someone who tries to get him into jazz, and she gives him a sort of a listening list, which makes it into my listening list as well.
That's it. That's very interesting. So? Does that come from your radio background? The connection to music, or
I don't know really. I tell you where it comes from. When I was a kid, I used to do homework at the dining room table, and my dad used to do his work. He was a businessman, and he used to do his work with me on a Sunday morning, and we would listen to 70s and 80s rock music together.
yeah,
And so we'd listen to like Black Sabbath and Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin and stuff like that. And that kind of formed my taste in lots of ways. And of course, I'm 46 now, so I've basically become my dad. But actually, the idea of music being an accompaniment to work, I think I've just had from that point onwards, from a child.
yeah. So, all right, let's go back then. Since you brought up some of your origin here, where did this start for you? Like, why did you decide you were going to start writing? When
So
did that happen?
yeah, so I've written a couple of non-fiction books, sort of explainer books about Britain, and then a book about reading as well. And I was supposed to be writing a third non-fiction book, which was impossible. I pitched it foolishly. It's completely beyond my abilities. And the conceit for the book was, how does an art student answer the most difficult scientific questions in the universe? So how do you have the sort of the explainer of all explainers for where the world comes from and stuff like that, but through the eyes of someone who is an art student to his very core, which I thought was quite fun. But of course, it requires a vast amount of research. And anyway, I wasn't writing that book, and then COVID happened, and I started just writing a book for my wife to read in the bath in the evening. And
Yeah.
so I didn't have a contract. I didn't have anything really. And I used to write, and my daughter was 7 at that point, or probably 4 at that point. And I'd sit in the evening and do her hair, and we'd watch telly, and my wife would read in the bath, and I'd write 1,500 words for her to read in the bath every day. And so I've loved books my whole life. Books have sort of saved my life at various points. And so I always loved the idea of novels. And so I just wrote this really for the joy of writing. And then I finished it, and I had an agent for my nonfiction book. And I said, well, I've written this thing. You can read it. If you hate it, we'll never mention it again. And she passed it around, and someone bought 2 books on the back of it, and that's got me going on it. But the point was the writing in the beginning was for the pleasure of it all.
That's it sounds idyllic. You've got
Yeah.
You just decided one day, I'm just going to write something for my wife to read in the bath.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
But I also loved it. I love detective fiction growing up,
Yeah.
and also, COVID happened, and I started thinking about. So I live in London, and you'll remember this at the time. Lots of people were talking about what it is to be living in an urban versus a rural environment, how important green spaces were, how important connection was, solitude versus loneliness, the intrusion of technology, all these sort of things bubbling around. So I started writing a novel about a guy who inherited a house in the middle of nowhere in the British countryside, where there's no technology possible. There's no internet connection, there's no TV, there's no radio. And I throw him into this sort of rural idyll in a place where there's no technology, and try and work out how much he can resist the modern world and how much the modern world grabs him and shakes him and won't let go, which in many ways is the great question we're all wrestling with in some form or other. So there was a kind of philosophical itch I was trying to scratch at the same time, I think.
yeah. Well, especially 2020, we were kind of in a position where technology was our lifeline to the rest of the world. So to write something that, pulls someone out of that environment, that's an interesting twist.
And also, and then subsequent to that, I think certainly the news story narrative that we have in this country, I'm sure it's the same in America, is that technology, I think, has loomed ever more as this pernicious influence in our lives. And the rise of AI, about which I'm very gloomy, and the like, although we are, as you say, reliant on it. So it's a very difficult thing, the technology. And the reason I like my guy Jake in this place, because he escapes technology where he lives, but of course, when he gets involved in investigating murders, technology pops back up again as well. And so
Right.
he gets to try and resist it and succumb to it in the same way that we all do.
Yeah. So he's not a Luddite. He's just resistant.
Yeah, I'm a Luddite. I'm actually quite a proud Luddite, I think. I try not to be,
Yeah.
but I do, like I said, because I do 4 hours of news every day, where a considerable chunk is social media is ruining our kids. We have no attention
Yeah.
span. No one's reading books anymore. And by the way, if you work in a white collar job, AI is coming for you. And my
Right.
eldest is now 17, and I got no concept of what jobs will be available for her when she turns 21.
Right.
I think Ludditism starts to look rather attractive in those circumstances.
Yeah, yeah. I've had my eye on some Amish barns here in the
Yeah.
Pennsylvania area.
And
Uh
what actually can be more proudly Luddite, really, than a book? An
right.
actual physical, wonderful, tactile piece of 17th century technology.
It's like
That's
it becomes a sort of quiet rebellion that you hold in your hand. Got 300 pages of rebellion against technology.
Yeah. And look, I'm I don't mind. I think Kindles are a wonderful invention in lots of respects. I love audio books for people who might struggle with reading or might want to fit it into their lifestyle more. So you can't fight against all of this stuff.
Yeah.
But um, my great one of my great pleasures in life is, as you say, 300 pages of rebellion.
Yeah. So what do you count as sort of inspiration for the stuff that you love to write? What is it that feeds that?
I think it probably began with detective fiction in a variety of forms. So I remember as a kid reading Sherlock Holmes,
Hmm.
and actually there's a bit in Sherlock Holmes which is a direct inspiration for all of this, because there's a moment in one of the stories of Sherlock Holmes where he's on a train with Watson, and they're driving through the countryside, and Watson is saying how beautiful and pretty it all is. And Sherlock Holmes turns to him and say, actually, if you could, even the darkest, most fetid corner of a city is comparatively safe compared to these sort of lonely homesteads where who knows what's happening beneath the cover of darkness. And I
Mm.
came up with this idea in my mind, which he more or less says, which is that in the countryside no one can hear you scream.
Yeah.
um so I've always loved detective fiction, starting with Sherlock Holmes. I've always loved tactile fiction that talks about sensations and tastes and smells and feelings, and so putting my guy somewhere where that teams with that. And so both American and British detective fiction got me going, and then really all of literature thereafter. I did an English degree, and like I said, I spend my life reading books, and so the love of books, I think, got me writing. I think there's no getting away from that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's something to that because we love there's stories that we love to read again and again, and then there's stories we wish we were seeing on the page, and that ends up forcing a lot of us to go sit in front of something, a
Yeah, well,
notepad, a keyboard.
there's a great quote by Benjamin Disraeli, the 19th century prime minister here, where he said, "Every time I want to read a book, I write one." And so, which isn't quite true, of course. I mean, do you like to reread a book?
I do, yeah. I like to
See, my
reread.
wife hates
Yeah.
it. I love rereading, and in fact, again, the reason why I like writing series fiction is some of my fondest moments of reading are returning to books and worlds and
Yeah.
characters that I'm familiar with. I think with a series you can build that up, but also just the idea of going back to I've read some books tens, hundreds of times,
Yeah.
and there's an American series I love. Do you know John D. MacDonald, who wrote the Travis McGee
Yeah.
series?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
so he there's a bit of him in my mind. Fighting against the modern world, lives in a beautiful, interesting place. His amazing boat in Florida. Um, But yeah, there's loads of series of I find series fiction such a joy where you stumble into it on book 5 and then you realize, or book
Right.
25, and you realize, oh my God, I've got months of reading to come is one of the great experiences in life, I think.
Yeah. You don't feel that upset. I get readers who get mad when they come across my series, like, 12 books in or something. If
I like it. I mean, what I like is because in some ways the first one is the hardest one because you'll know this, you've got to build, there's a lot of just workaday building you've got to do. You've got to
That's right.
explain where everyone is. You've got to
Yeah.
move into place. You've got to literally sort of construct the house they live in and the landscape they live in and all that stuff. And in some ways, series really get going on book 2.
Yeah.
So I'm very fond of stumbling into a series and then starting from the beginning once I already know who everyone is.
Yeah. That's yeah, I like that. Do you find all right, well let me ask you this about your series then, because sometimes I'll notice like character drift. There's a difference between character growth.
Yeah.
We saw this character grow over 10 books or whatever. But sometimes the beginning, the character is very different than than the rest of the series. How did you manage to avoid that problem? And how'd you do that?
My biggest problem, or I've got many problems, but one of my biggest problems is I really like my characters. I don't know if you feel
Hmm.
this. So I have to have rows with the
Yeah,
publisher who I just I kind of just want nice things to happen to them, and I realize it's crime
right.
fiction, and and so I think probably my first Jake Jackson's the name of my detective, and he in the first book he meets this woman who's a vet, and so he goes away from the city. He's had a failed marriage, and he meets this local vet, and they start to fall in love, and I just really love that relationship. And actually, most of the time when I get emails from readers, they really like that relationship. They like nice things happening to them and they like the idea of love.
Right.
But often my editors will say, you need to put a bit more grit in all of this.
Right.
And
Right.
so the first, but I probably idealized Jake, my guy, a little too much. And as we've gone along, I've had to put a little bit more burdens on his of a burden on his shoulders and make him get tempted by things he shouldn't be tempted by. And the Edenic aspect of it all probably has shifted from the first book to the fourth one. And actually, I've written the fifth one is completely finished, and I've written a first draft of the sixth one. So I'm well
Okay.
ahead. I'm well ahead of the game on this, and I'm a very annoying author in that I would just happily sit and write. And then write another one and another one, and you'll know this. Publishers don't want that. They want it from some people. They'd love it from Agatha Christie or whatever. They don't want it from me. Me sending them emails. Yeah, I've got another book done.
Ah,
Um, so again, I've got to be careful that I don't idealize them too much. I think is one way I've stopped the drift because I've had to put a bit of nettle in all of this.
yeah, the problem is I'm the same way, by the way. I like my characters a lot, so I don't really want them to go through hell every
Yeah,
book. I'm thinking of writing, Dan Kotler goes on vacation or something.
yeah.
Just, just
There's an argument, that nothing bad. I'd love because again, the incidental pleasures of books don't rest on the battle of good and evil to me. So I
yeah,
think crime fiction has the battle of good and evil at its core. Of course, it does. But my favorite bits of a book are the incidental pleasures,
yeah,
and to do that, I think it's Kurt Vonnegut who said you've got to have someone to root for, otherwise
right,
your character's just shouting out of an open window.
right,
And
right,
and I think I find characters to root for really important.
yeah,
And if you dislike a character, I always say, if you read John Updike's, the Rabbit books, have you ever read John
yeah,
Updike's
yes,
book? Yeah. You know how awful his son Nelson is. It's so
mm,
brilliantly written, but his
right,
son is such a dick. I
yeah,
hate him so much. He's so rude and thankless, graceless and ungrateful and whiny, and he's so brilliantly written. But
yeah,
it slightly tempers my enjoyment of this Magisterial, one of the great novel series of all time. It slightly annoys me because he's too much of an awful character.
yeah, yeah. What do you do to make sure your characters aren't flat on the page?
I try and see them physically in my mind. and I try and hear them in my mind. And actually, for example, by the time I got to the fourth one, I've built a sort of team around Jake. And there's this character I discovered in the second book. She's a woman called Martha, who's my
Mm.
favorite character in the whole thing. And again, one of those people that people, when I talk to readers, they like. She had her legs blown off in a terrorist incident, so she used to work in the security services. She now writes fiction, cozy fiction for a living, but she's this sort of ex-spy, really. And she's
Yeah.
incredibly leery, incredibly mordant and sarcastic. She smokes weed the whole time because she's in pain. And she's this presence that sort of blips up on a computer screen to offer caustic advice. And I really like, I've sort of stumbled into her. She was just a bit part in the second one. And then she's going to be in every, as long as I get to write this series, she's going to be a major figure in it. And I hope that I just try and find people with interesting characteristics and quirks and oddities and eccentricities, and that stops them becoming flat.
Yeah. How does that apply to your protagonist? I mean, he's going to get all the adventure in every book, but there can kind of be I don't know, things can kind of slow down in that part when it comes to character development. How do you make sure he's always growing?
I think the central predicament I've put him in is endless, because I think a version of it is, as I said, the one we're all facing, which is, on the one hand, he would love to jettison the world and live this sort of hermitic, beautiful rural lifestyle.
Yeah.
And yet that means no family. It means no entanglement. It actually means, if you're a detective, never being the hero to solve a mystery where you play center stage. And in many ways, that's the same, I think, moral quandary we're all in. That at one level, we should reject a lot of the trappings of the modern world, and yet we're completely enticed, almost to the point of being overwhelmed by them. And so I think he gets to play out the sort of moral battle of the age each time, which is to say, how much, I'm very much struck by the notion that for all of human history until 20 years ago, when you closed the front door, the world was outside and you were inside.
Right.
And then 20 years ago, we decided to just abandon that completely. And the concept of front doors are obsolescent. The world comes at you, its tentacles sort of creep through everything and grab you. And so the battle against that is in many ways the battle of modern existence. And I think he gets to do that at a certain level in every adventure. And I find that interesting.
Are you aiming to make that kind of commentary? I mean, is that an overt decision on your part?
I think because I spend my whole time talking about the news, it's intrinsic to who I am. So I spend a lot of my time debating the issues of the day, and therefore it's all I do. And I think it's kind of intrinsic to who I am, a sort of chatter and a prodder and a poker and a try to think about things. So that's probably intrinsic to who I am. And so it's things like, so this book, Twist in the River, it started, the inspiration for it came from a news story. So a woman went missing in England, and I was very struck by the fact that no one could find her for a week. She went missing in a river, in the middle of nowhere. And you'd think, Britain's a very small country, we're a tiny island, you'd think mysteries wouldn't really happen here because we're all living on top of one another. But it did. And then all sorts of things followed from that. There were self-appointed experts in the media saying they'd find her. There was this new phenomenon of true crime YouTubers who descended on this tiny village and annoyed the hell out of everyone by just trying to get content out of this tragedy of a community. And so that type of the issue of how the modern world infiltrates everything was, again, it was just there in you almost can't have a modern crime story without that being part of it, I don't think, really.
Right. Yeah.
So I was very struck by that. And so I took that as a job. I mean, nothing else that followed is anyway related to what happened to that woman who I think just drowned while swimming. But it made me think about the smallness of the country versus how hard it is to have a mystery, and yet mysteries still happen.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think of the whole podcaster YouTube thing when it comes to that?
Yeah. So I started my career working. I used to deal with complaints against journalists, was how I started my career when I was young. And I'm very struck by the fact that journalists get a bad reputation with some justification for going after a story relentlessly and not always morally.
Hmm.
But at least there's a framework by which journalism traditionally functions, even more so in America, I think, than in the UK. I think there's a danger in amateurs who, if your stock in trade is the click and you just need likes and clicks and the serotonin rush of that, I think that's a dangerous place to be telling stories about people's lives. Now, some people do it
Yeah.
beautifully in podcasts and YouTube, but I think the desire to get a sugary hit out of someone's tragedy doesn't necessarily make for very good storytelling.
Yeah. Yeah. Does that has that perspective influenced the way you approach your storytelling?
Yeah, I mean, I try. I mean, I think anyone with a conscience tries to do that. I mean, you don't always get it
Yeah.
right, and it's not always possible, actually. I mean, the other thing I find interesting about podcasts is, uh, I know from talking to publishers here that podcasts are killing the non-fiction book. So there is a
Really? Oh, well,
crisis
I could
in,
see it.
yeah. So
Yeah.
there's a crisis in non-fiction in this country. I'm sure probably in America, where you could spend, I don't know, $30 for a beautifully written history of the American Civil War.
Right.
Um, or you could listen for free to a podcast of the historian doing in 10, 30-minute episodes, which you can listen while you drive or jog or whatever for
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
So are you spending your $30 and trying to carve out time to sit in a quiet room and read where the whole world is shouting at you? Or are you going to stick it in your headphones for free and wander about the place listening to it? And
Yeah.
that sort of so again, this is my Ludditism again striking, but technology is going to take away a lot of the pleasure of the book, I think, and you're starting to see
Mm.
that in all sorts of areas.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I'm seeing a march towards analog right now. I
Oh,
mean,
are
I'm
you?
seeing
Well,
a
I hope.
lot of people.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
hope so. I hope so.
I, yeah. Who can say though? Things change so rapidly.
Well,
New technologies come along, disrupt everything. Who knows?
my fear is kind of that books are the vinyl of the future. That there'll be
Yeah.
some people who love.
Yeah.
There's some people who love vinyl, and you
Yeah.
always get these news stories. Oh, vinyl's up 150% this year,
That's right.
but it's
Yeah.
150% of four, so it's gone
Yeah,
to
yeah, so
it's gone to
that's what I was about to
nine.
say.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
uh,
you can double vinyl sales when you're only selling one a year.
yeah, exactly. And so my slight fear is that the things that we love, those books, will be loved by the vinyl fans,
Yeah,
but that's not
yeah.
everybody.
No, it's not.
I
But
hope.
I
I
am
hope not.
seeing I'm
Oh,
seeing
good for you.
growth in
Listen,
that. There's
let,
hope.
let
There's
me
hope
inject
for
that into
us.
my veins. Yeah, let me inject that into my
Yes.
veins. That's fine.
Take this from me,
Yeah,
from
yeah,
my heart to your
yeah.
soul.
Bless you.
So, all right. Well, as we kind of wrap up, you've talked a bit about what the book is, what it's about. Do you want to talk? Can you talk at all about what's coming up, or are
Yeah, I
those kind of
can do.
hush hush right
Yeah, I
now?
mean, so the fifth one, which will be out in a year's time, um, I had an idea to do this when there's a very famous golden age of detective fiction book, a novelist called Josephine Tey. Have you ever heard of her? She's not that. She's not.
No.
So she's not. So there's Agatha Christie and Dorothy Sayers, who
Mhm.
most people have heard of, and there's two more
Right.
who aren't that famous. One is called Josephine Tey. Anyway, she wrote a book called The Daughter of Time, where her detective broke his leg and then decided to solve the mystery of the princes in the tower. So he solved a historical mystery from his bed. So it was a modern detective novel written in the 50s about a murders that allegedly took place in the 15th century. And
Okay.
so what I thought would be fun, although it was a fair traveling, was to have Jake and his the love of his life, Livia, stuck in a hospital at least partially, and then asked by someone in their village to solve a crime from the past. So they're solving a fallen woman crime from the Victorian period. At the same time as stuff's going on in their life, a modern day colleague of his is gone rogue and is coming after him. But the crime story is really a question of set in 1858 about this woman who seemed to kill herself. And did she do that because she was forced to? Was she murdered? What happened to her when something bad seemingly happened to her in 1858? And so Jake, because he's stuck in a health situation, is solving a historical crime.
So it's like a locked room mystery, but the detective's the one locked in the room.
Exactly. Yes, great. That's a good way of that. Yeah. So I don't know how it will go down. it was great fun to write. So it's a little bit of a historical novel, a little bit of a modern novel, and it's the people who hopefully people have grown to like trying to solve a crime from 150 years ago.
I already look forward to it. I'm gonna have to catch up on your whole catalog, but
Oh, but well, yeah, but bless you. I mean, the first one is Death Under a Little Sky, and that was out whenever 3 years ago.
yeah.
And this is the fourth one, Twist and River. I mean, you can if you don't want to read all that other stuff, um, you can just read this one. This one just sits on its own as a tale, and you'll catch up pretty quickly.
Of course, but I mean, gotta read the whole back catalog. Can't
Well,
just
if
leave
you
it
like
hanging
it,
out
well,
there.
as I said, if you like it, if you like this one, my gift to you is that there's three others to read, and
There you
you know,
go.
and that's one of the I remember the Sue Grafton books or
Yeah, yeah,
James Lee Burke or any of these series. Michael Connolly, obviously a great example of it. You stumble into book five, and there's some other ones to read.
excellent. All right. Well, where can people find more about you and your work?
Uh, I've slightly jettisoned X, but I'm on Instagram, this Stig Abell, and you can always drop me a note there if you happen to read one of these books. I love talking books with anyone. I've loved talking
Excellent.
books with you. It's been a great privilege. But anyone ever wants to talk about anything like that, you can just send me a message on Instagram. I'm happy to chat.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. What a pleasure to talk to you.
So, Steak talked about writing within tight time constraints instead of waiting for the perfect conditions. So, I have sometimes put artificial deadlines on myself just to kind of push my limits. Do you guys do things like that? I mean, do you find that it's that you work better with constraints than with a wide open
Always.
schedule?
If I have the time,
Yeah.
I'll fill it. Also, I need someone to drive me into work so I can plot in the back seat. That's all.
I do it all the time. So every time I start a book, I always tell Scrivener that it's going to be 80,000 words, and then I backtrack from
Yeah.
there. And I figure out whatever, I typically do 2 to 3,000 words a day. So I set myself a goal of 2,000. And
Yeah.
I use that to create whatever my deadline is. And then it'll actually tell you if you're on pace for that or not. And if I fall behind, then I end up doing more words. But I basically create a deadline. Like it's not a real deadline. Like I don't have a deadline on the book, from a publishing
Yeah.
standpoint. But it's one that I'm using to just kind of drive myself to the writing table.
Yeah. Yeah, I do that too. In fact, that's pretty much my method. You pretty much outlined it. I typically would say, this book's going to be 80,000 or 100,000, and that you can work the formula to figure out. And if you want to take days off, by the way, you have to add
Have
that
to
in there
mix that
too.
in.
Yeah.
I tell Christine my goals, and if I meet them, she sends me a surprise.
I do. I send her presents in the mail.
Well, like a puppy.
No,
Like,
there was a tumbler with a whale that spouts when you drink out of it.
yeah,
I
just
forget. I
silly
have another one
little
in mind.
fun
I'm
things.
waiting for you to
I,
finish the
I
list.
feel like I'm missing out on a lot of cool stuff by not
Yeah.
chatting with you two more.
They've never
I
feel
availed
like I
me
should be
anything
in
other than
We get up
I
to
got
stuff.
You got a hoodie.
I got a hoodie once. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
cool.
That's right. I send people
I got
hoodies.
it. Oh, the T-shirt you sent me that was one of
USP,
them.
UM,
The
yeah, a
J-
likable female protagonist shirt. There
Yeah,
you
I
go.
get
Your shirt.
compliments every time I wear that shirt out. So yeah. Anyway, yeah. So you are missing out, Kevin, is the long and
Yes,
short.
if
I
you
am.
if you need deadlines, I will send you ridiculous stuff in the mail if you meet them. So just let me know.
There we go. Now we know.
Perfect.
Uh, so one of the more interesting ideas that came out of this was that every story carries an underlying philosophical question. Uh, in this one, it was our relationship with technology. But do you think should novels wrestle with those quote big questions? Should that be an overt thing that we do in the books?
Yeah. I mean, that comes down to theme, and I think like
Sometimes.
whether you intend on it or not, I do think that the novels that tend to resonate with a wide readership have a theme to them. Even thrillers, like there's usually, themes of, good versus evil or what makes someone do thing or, there's I think that always just if you're dealing with like why, if why is putting your plot forward, like there's going to be some questions that you're asking why about.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I go into every book, tried not to teach, like a moral lesson, But
Yeah.
at the same time, I think because your character has to go through some kind of growth, that means they have to learn a moral lesson. So even if you're not intentionally out there trying to plot one throughout the book, because your character is going through that change, it's there in the background, whether you want it to be or not.
Yeah. I do think that's important. I don't think that, I don't think that we should beat a reader over the head with like, you need to learn this lesson. But I do think, yeah, if a character is learning and growing, there's going to be something that they're learning and growing.
Yeah, I don't even think like you have to answer the lesson. I think you can just
No.
pose the questions and
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
I
I
like
feel
that
like,
better. I like it better when there's am not talked to, but like, hey,
yeah,
think about this.
I don't want to be preached to.
Yeah.
I don't like message books, like the message is we're ruining our ecology or whatever. I let me pick that up on my own. And I think that probably happens more than the intentional underlying philosophy. Like right. I've had plenty of readers, or I've been on interviews, like podcast interviews where people have asked me about, this theme that they picked up on. And literally in that interview is the first time I ever even considered that theme. But I roll with it because I'm like, great, yeah, I totally
Obviously,
intended
I did
that.
that on purpose.
Yeah, I'm a master of the craft. So this is probably going to be our last question because we've kind of run over. But Stig, he admits that he likes his characters so much that his editors have to remind him to make them suffer.
Yes.
So how important is it for you to make your characters suffer? Do they have to suffer?
Yes.
Can't we have some mercy for
No.
God's sake?
Unfortunately, I think it comes down to like, so like what JD said, your character has to learn a lesson. And I think for all of us that have been like alive on this planet in the year of our Lord 2026, like growth hurts and is painful.
hurts.
Like it's never easy, right? Like it's never fun. It doesn't ever feel good, but you have to go through it.
Yeah. We don't like growth and we don't like change. We have to be forced.
Yeah.
And it's not, even in like cozier books or low stakes books, growth is still painful. So I think that's just the way it has to be. Otherwise,
unfortunately,
kind of
we
flat.
must make our characters suffer.
Yes.
This is how I know that God is writing a book about my life.
All right. With that, JD, who's up next week?
Next week, we've got John Dingle coming on. John is the author of the critically acclaimed and multi-award nominated Gus Wheeler FBI series. He's back with book number 3, titled Before the Devil Knows, about 2 teenagers brutally murdered in the forests of northern Maine. I think it releases July 29th. So John Dingle.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. If you'd like to be notified as soon as new episodes publish, make sure you go to writersincpodcast.com and sign up now. We'll see you next episode and have a great week of writing.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Writers Inc. Access the show notes and leave a comment at writersincpodcast.com.